Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of Let's Talk About That. My name is Fran Thomas, and I am the host for this week's episode. You are going to hear from my new friend, Mo Sparks. And Mo is kind and gracious enough to let us into her story as a student as she has navigated tremendous loss. Oh, I just cannot imagine what she's gone through. And I tell her often, you know what? This is so personal, so extraordinary, so painful what you've had to experience. And she's so kind and gracious to let us into her story. And I'm so thankful for that. You are going to be blessed and deeply inspired as she opens up and shares her life with us. Thank you, Mo. I appreciate you. All right, you guys, enjoy the conversation. Okay, we are jumping right into another conversation of Let's Talk About That. And today, you guys, I'm so excited for you to meet and learn from and hear from my new friend, Mo Sparks. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
This is so fun. You're a student. I want you to tell the listeners whatever it is you want to tell before we dive into why in the world are you on this show. But just, I don't know, where are you from? What's your major? All that kind of stuff. Give us some context.
All right. My name is Mo Sparks. I am a senior communications major with a minor in criminal justice here at Union.
Okay.
I'm from Andrews, North Carolina, which is a very, very small Appalachian town. Yeah.
Okay. How in the world? That's far from Jackson, Tennessee.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you find us?
Yeah, I had originally had absolutely no clue about Union and no desire to come here. I had like this whole backup plan of joining the military and doing a women's cadet program in Virginia. But then the Lord just was like, no, that's not at all where you need to be right now. And he opened a lot of doors for me to find Union. And a lot of people in my life kind of pointed me this way, and I found it, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to put words in the Lord's mouth, but I think this is what he wants me to do, where he wants me to go, and history ever since. I know.
Okay, I love it when students are brave enough and courageous enough to come to school far from home, because as a parent, I'm like, no, no, that's awfully far. But then also just, respecting and understanding your willingness and your want to be obedient to the Lord. So that's fun. We're going to get into your story. I want the listeners to know, I always, when Ted and I are talking through different guests on the show, we're looking for somebody that's got an interesting story to tell. Sometimes they're a little more predictable than others, but this one is not predictable. Yours is not.
Yeah.
And so when you and I met the other day and just were touching base on, our talking points and what parts of your story we were going to share, I think I looked at you and said, remember, you have a very unique, hard, wild story. And so I'm very grateful that you are willing to go there and take us into your story. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, and then some parts of your story I did know, but this first part that I want to talk about, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember when you were a freshman and hearing about some girl that found herself paralyzed.
Yep.
What even the heck? Walk us through. Let's just start there, and we'll take it from there. We got plenty to talk about, everybody.
Okay, yeah. So I had first got here at Union, and I was an athlete. I did all the things. I played all the things. Was having a good time. I was literally most looking forward to being on the Jills and playing all the intramurals and kind of living that aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And in October of a fall semester, my freshman year, this is also coming out of COVID too, which was
right. Okay.
adding a whole other thing. my roommates had gotten quarantined, and so I had my the apartment to myself. So I was hanging out, I was having a good time, I was watching movies, I was playing Just Dance, all the things. And then literally the craziest thing happened. I had passed out, and when I woke up, I literally just could not feel the entire lower half of my body. And I was afraid, but it was very much like okay, let's figure this out. Like we've got to do something. Something's not right here. No time to panic.
Were you able to think, because you just said, I couldn't feel my legs. Did you think, oh, that feeling's just going to come back? Or oh my gosh.
That's a really good question, actually.
Where was your level of concern?
I feel like we've all had those things where you're squatting for a long time and you lose feeling in the bottom of, of your legs or whatever. When this happened, I don't even know if I can explain it to you, but there was no doubt in my mind. I was like, something's wrong with me. It was a feeling like nothing else I've ever felt before. It was there is something of great concern happening to me right now.
Okay.
And so I called one of, I think she was my RA at the time, and I was like, hey girl, I don't want to be a bother or anything, but I think I'm paralyzed. I think there's something wrong with my legs and I can't move. Is there anything that you could help me with?
And that poor RA is like, this was not in our training.
Yeah, Res Life has a new rule because of me about emergency procedures. Yeah, and I had asked her of anything that you can help me with, just please don't make me go to the hospital. I don't want to go. Yeah. And she was very mature. She did the right thing, the tough love thing of being like, okay, you have two options. I can call an ambulance or I can drive you to the hospital, but either way you're going. And so I went. And at this point, my blood pressure was really messed up too. I was having some physiological symptoms other than just being paralyzed. Okay. So I was passing out, coming in and out a lot. For any science people that might be listening, my blood pressure was 30 over 52, something for 6 hours. It was incredibly low. And I think when I had first got there, the hospital thought I was joking a little bit or just stressed. And then I was in there for probably about 12 hours, and they were like, yeah, we're going to have to admit you. And then I was in the hospital for over a week because they couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And so I had some tests done, had some nerve damage in my legs. And so they could see that something had happened, but they couldn't figure out what it was. There was proof all through my body that something had either shut down my nervous system because there was whatever. Couldn't tell me what had actually happened to me though. And so then they did this little test, feeling the nerves were response in the tip of my toes. And at about a week in, I had nerve signaling that it was feeling that they were sticking needles into my feet. And so they were like, honestly, we're going to assume that that's improvement, and we're going to say that you're probably going to improve from here, but we don't want to make you keep, paying for a hospital stay. So we're going to send you home. If anything kind of gets worse, come back. But we're going to say that this is going to be an uptick of improvement.
You'll just naturally improve on your own.
Yes. And it took...
They send you back to Union or send
me back to Union. Okay. Yeah, so I came back to Union, and then I ended up being in a wheelchair for...
That's what I remember.
4 months or a little bit more than that. And I don't know if you know a lot about Union, but there's not a lot of people in wheelchairs. And at my time, I was one... I think I was one of two kids in a wheelchair, and being a freshman girl in a new environment was hard.
The dorms are far away.
Yes.
And so, yes, you're a freshman.
Yeah.
You're far from home. You're navigating the whole freshman world.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, 2 months in, you have this happen, and then you're just like, okay, I guess I'm going to start figuring things out. And you had to start figuring out some stuff really, really quick.
Yes. It was a lot. And I think in a weird way, I learned so much about myself during that time. And so much of where I put my identity and my worth and my value as a person, all of those things, I lost all of those things. If I'm being so honest with you, in losing how I felt my worth was as a person made me realize how much in my physicality, how much in my ability to do things that I had staked my identity in.
Was that coming because you had been an athlete your whole life? What would you have based your identity? Where was that value and that worth coming from?
Yeah, I think my ability as an athlete, I'm like 5'10" and broad shoulders. Like, I'm not a petite 5'10". And so I think I love protecting people, and I think that's something that the Lord has hardwired in me. And so I've always kind of taken a lot of those like protection roles or looking out for other people. And so I'm really bad at letting other people look out for me. But then there's this aspect of like, if I felt so many things in what I thought my calling was at the time, and my identity of being the strong and tough person in the friend group. Yeah. Well, then who am I? Like, none of my friends are going to want to hang out with me. Right. I'm the burden in that. And realizing that, you know, none of them cared. They all loved to take care of me. They loved me for who I was, not what purpose I served in our friend group. But to me, it was like, well, like if I can't be the big and strong one, if I can't protect them, if I can't, you know, be this fast or score that goal or whatever, then like, what am I contributing?
But what's so crazy is that, you know, I think it's 17, 18 years old when you come into college, or you're going through this just period of growth and transformation and understanding of who you are as a person. You're not thinking, okay, Lord, let's see, what could be a way to, you know, strip me of all of the wrong places I have got my value and my identity in. Let's choose paralyze you.
Yeah.
Like, you never, that you couldn't put two and two together. You couldn't make the connection. Right. But at some point in that journey, was it still the fall semester where you were able to see, oh, my identity is being shaken up here just a little bit? Or did it take much longer for you to figure out,
That's a really good question. I would say it hit me harder later on, like towards the maybe end of spring, mid to end of spring semester. Yeah. I think in the height of fall semester, when all that was happening to me, even over Christmas break, I think I was very much in a fight or flight of just, I need to survive this. Yeah. You know, like I need to make it through this. Yeah. And it wasn't until I could start walking again, but like I couldn't run for maybe a year without passing out. Like anytime my heart rate would get over like 100, like I would just pass out. And so also like my legs atrophied, and you know, I lost a lot of muscle mass. And so it wasn't until those times where I presented healthy and good and still couldn't do the things that I wanted to do that it hit me more, because I was fine and I wasn't in that fight or flight place. But people also assumed that I was healthy and could do all these things. And then when I couldn't meet those expectations, I felt really bad about myself.
Well, and you've got a personality that's, I mean, yes, you've said you're an introvert, but you've got a personality that, you know, like everything's fine, or, you know, no, I'm good. Don't worry about me. All is okay. And, you know, part of that is just, you know, a freshman in college. And like you said, I don't want to be that burden. Everybody's trying to figure out who in the world they are. Yeah. But my goodness, when you're from far away, you've had a significant event like this happen, you're having to be in a wheelchair, and everything is being questioned, like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming at 17, 18 years old. Yeah. Okay. That's a lot. So that's one part. Yes. That's one significant moment.
But it didn't stop there,
did it? It did not stop there. What happens next in your sweet little life?
Yeah. So I, you know, went back, you know, I'm at school, living life. And then I think there was a series of significant losses that I experienced in my life, spanning less than a year, but going from spring semester my sophomore year until spring semester my junior year, and I lost in that span of a year my grandpa to cancer, who I was very, very close with, my cousin, and I know some people might not have close relationships with their cousin, but he like lived with us for a couple years. He was, my older sister's twin. We were very, very close. He was like my brother. Lost him. And then I lost my dad completely, just unexpectedly out of the blue. And so, yeah, a lot of loss in a very short amount of time, and a lot of very significant losses. Yeah. That's a lot to
absorb. It's a lot to sort through.
Yeah.
It's a lot. That is a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And it was just one hit after another.
Yeah. Yeah, I never felt like I quite had an ability to breathe. Like, it was as soon as I felt like I was kind of getting my head above water with the one loss, it was like, again,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to us about, and you and I have talked about, and I know we say this kind of thing all the time, and I do believe that the Lord is preparing us. He's constantly preparing us. He's equipping us. He's strengthening us. He's encouraging us as we go about life, knowing that these hits are going to come our way, and that we do need to have our faith secure, that we do need to understand where our identity is. But at the same time, you're like, okay, yes, but then the reality of it is when it hits, what do we do? What do I do?
Yeah.
But when you talk about, and I don't want us just to casually move past the loss of your grandfather, the loss of your cousin, and the loss of your dad. That is hard.
Yeah.
All between 1 year, from spring semester to spring semester. How have you felt like the Lord? Where did you see him? What was your response? Were you pulling from that faith, or were you like, forget it all? I cannot do this.
Yeah.
This is too much. I didn't sign up for this. This is not college.
Yeah. What's funny, I had like a little thing in between here. When I had lost, in between losing my grandfather and my dad, I struggled a little bit with like seeing the faithfulness of the Lord despite how I felt. And so that was something that like I didn't want my faith to be shaken in the middle of this. And so that was something I was very proactive in, like reading more about the Lord's faithfulness and stuff in the Word. And so one of the songs that was like my song during this time was Refiner by Maverick City Music, which I don't know if you know it, but it's like, I want to be tried by fire, purified. And I remember losing my dad and like literally sitting like sobbing in my bedroom being like, Lord, this is not what I meant. Like, this is not at all what I wanted to happen. Like, when I said that I wanted to be tried by fire, I meant like a stressful week in school. Like, just read it when I'm reading the Bible.
Right.
Tell me what you want me to know.
Right.
Don't show me like this.
Right.
But it's very interesting to me because I think I struggled more with anger in God, anger in my relationship, anger in myself, way more when I was paralyzed than when I lost my dad. And there was something, I think, like the Lord tells us in the Bible, like the Prince of Peace, like I grew up in Sunday school. I've heard about the name of the Prince of Peace and all of those things. But like, what does the Prince of Peace look like?
Right.
What does peace from God actually look like?
Peace that surpasses all understanding.
Right.
Where is that?
Literally. And I couldn't have described to you what that was until I lost something that was so world shattering to me that like had you asked me a month before I had lost my dad, because my dad was my absolute best friend. We were two peas in a pod. And like, if you had told me like, hey, you're going to lose your dad in a month, I'd be like, okay, well then I'm going to die too. Like, that is like, I don't think I could go on without my dad. And so it happened. And like, I can't necessarily even find the words to describe the peace that I felt, like even through it. And it wasn't peace in the sense that I didn't cry for months. It wasn't peace in the sense that I do not intensely grieve to this day about things that I either experienced that my dad won't be here for, like all of those things, but peace in the sense of like the Lord is faithful despite that, and like I can continue. Which is not anything that I ever thought that I would be able to say thinking about living without my parents, and so I think it's shaped my identity a lot. I don't think it's necessarily changed it, but I think it's refined it. I'll say that it's definitely refined it.
Well, how old were you when your dad died?
19.
19. 19.
Yeah.
To experience that kind of loss. And I've heard you talk about loss in front of students before, and it's a beautiful thing in spite of how hard it is. You didn't choose this path. You would have never dreamed for any of these things. Any of these things. But when you think about loss and you think about, we all experience loss, and doesn't have to be, death. It can be a loss of anything.
Right.
And we're all going to experience something when it comes to that loss of understanding what we thought our identity was placed in.
Yes.
That's just ourselves. Like we have just got ourselves rooted in ourselves.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Self is rooted in self. So you experienced a loss of that.
Yeah.
And then you move through these series of deaths of these significant family members, and like your understanding of loss. How old are you now? 21. Your understanding of loss is very different than my understanding of loss. So and you're now an RA on campus, so you have access to students, and you have a perspective that is just very unique. So when they're going through something that some people might roll their eyes at and go, oh my gosh, that's not that big of a deal. If they're upset about something because something has not gone their way. Then you can speak into that a little bit differently, a little bit, with greater care and concern, because it does matter. It does matter. And so how do you feel about loss when somebody is experiencing it in these college years? Like, how does somebody respond to somebody, whether you're my age in their 50s or they're in their 20s? How should we handle someone's loss? Doesn't necessarily have to be death, but how do we handle somebody's loss when we're just like, oh my word, I don't know what to do in this situation? Yes, I have a lot of thoughts about this because I saw that modeled both really well and very poorly all at the same time. I think this is when those actions speak louder than words kinds of things is super, super important. Because I can't tell you, on the day of my funeral, like my dad's funeral, like I couldn't tell you what, this random person told me when they come to shook my hand, but I know that they were there, and that is what matters to me. And like, I know, like I couldn't tell you, in passing if somebody told me that they were praying for me, which is super important and I think is super valid. But like, I remember the friends that I hadn't talked to in 2 years who reached out to me and said that, like, I can't believe Uncle Jeff is gone. Like, I'm going to be here for you if you ever need anything, and showed up and have been for me, ever since. So I think being there for people and like continuing to be there, like you don't have to be, all up in their business 24/7, but like to be around, to not be afraid to talk about it. That was also a big thing. Like he was my dad, and he was so involved in so many aspects of my life. And I think if you move or your parents are going through a divorce or like whatever it is, people either avoid talking about those subjects when you're around, they'll avoid talking about their dad or their parents or, their home or whatever it is. But like,
he's still my dad. Like he will forever and always be my dad. And just because he's not here with us on earth anymore doesn't mean that he's not my dad. And so instead of like just avoiding talking about your parents, like I remember one time we were all talking about like which parent do we look more like, our mom or our dad. And so we were like going around the table, and they got to me and kind of paused and changed the conversation topic. And one of my friends goes, yeah, so Mo, who do you think you look more like, your mom or your dad? And I was like, oh, that's so good. And so I was able to talk about him in a non-depressing kind of way. Like I have a good medium of both, but I do take after my dad in a lot of ways. And so I think allowing people opportunities to talk about what they lost, because we don't get the opportunity to do that a lot. And so whether it is, talk about your old house. What were things about that town that you loved? What are memories you made? What are things you're going to miss? Like let them talk about, both ends. And I think we say this a lot, but prayer, like there's so much that prayer can really do, and that you don't even have to tell somebody that you're praying for them, but like if you know that somebody's struggling, praying for the Lord to give them that peace, do those little things for them, because that's something far more than you can even do with your own two hands.
Well, and in college, student to student, young person to young person who hasn't experienced a lot of loss, probably. Just learning how to sit well and listen well. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't even know what scripture to offer. That's fine.
Yes.
But like you said, just being present and being there and letting that person say whatever it is they want to say. That's okay.
Yes, because I don't need you to compare your loss to be like, I know what you're talking about. I lost my cat in 3rd grade and it was really hard. Like 9 times out of 10, just sit with me and tell me, dang, that sucks. Like I'm really sorry you had to go with that. And I'm like, thank you. It was hard.
Yes.
Like that's all I need from you. I don't need you to compare it. I don't need you to, put it in perspective. Like right now, this feels like a lot. Let me have this and I'll move on. I'll get over it tomorrow. I'll keep going. But right now,
let me feel my feelings. Let me say what I need to say. And just sit with me in that space.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Let's finish with this concept of, let's go back to refining.
Yes.
There's so many things in our faith that we pray and ask the Lord for, whether we're asking him to keep us humble, whether we're asking him to refine us, to teach us, whatever it is we're asking of him. It's great until you actually are in it.
Yeah.
And having to do it.
Yeah.
And refining, man, that's brutal.
Ooh, yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Do you pray about that? Are you afraid to pray that? Are you afraid of, oh man, I'm really good, Lord, please I don't want to be refined anymore.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that now? Do you play that song anymore? You have a very different perspective when it comes to refining and stripping yourself to the core of who you are. Yeah. Like your identity not being placed in improper things. Yeah. But my gosh, like that's a bold prayer now. It's a bold, risky thing for you to consider. I'd be a little scared.
Yeah, I can't sit here and tell you that there are not some days that I avoid saying that prayer because I don't mean it. There are some days where I'm like, you know what? Mm-hmm. Today I cannot be refined. Today I need to sit in my crap and let me just be here. Yeah. But I think the Lord has also shown me in so many ways that like I would not be here if it wasn't for the Lord's mercies that are new every single day. And like every single day that I wake up, I run on the joy of the Lord, and that's just about it. Like nothing of who I am is what's present in me anymore. And so I think there is still definitely a prayer in me to continue to be refined. And sometimes I say that a lot more with caution than I used to. But I know that in whatever the Lord chooses to refine me in, that he will also provide what I need to get through that refining. And as I've continued, like it's coming up on the 2-year mark, March 17th. And so I've had 2 years to kind of see the way that the Lord has been able to be glorified through what happened to me, which is something that I literally never thought that I would ever say ever. And so I think about, like when the Lord, like when talking about refining, I think about how the Lord talks about like pruning of the branches, and like he's pruning not because he wants us to suffer. He's not pruning because he hates the way that we were then, but he's pruning because that part of us needs to be trimmed back for the rest of us to grow and flourish. And so as I've got to live these past couple years post those things that have happened, I've seen so much flourishing within myself through the testimony that the Lord has given me through the testimonies of others that I've got to hear because of what I've experienced. And in a very selfish way, like the life that I've still got to live, like the past 2 years, I've got to have so much joy in a time that I never thought I would have joy in again, because the Lord is faithful to me. And so like asking to be refined is a super, super hard ask. But I think the willingness and the understanding that like the Lord will allow you to grow and flourish and continue despite the refining or pruning that might have to happen to get you to where God is leading you, which you don't always feel like. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, that's how I feel every day. Some days I'm like, dang, I really wish my dad could come to my graduation. Like I really wish that my dad could see me turn into the woman that I'm becoming, because he's never going to get to experience that. And so there are days where I'm like, dang, I really wish that I could be that lump of silver back there, but the Lord is going to refine that into something far greater than I could possibly know right now.
Oh, and you know what? Refining is hard. Pruning is hard. It's painful. There's not a lot of joy in the middle of it. But when you get to the other side of it and have the perspective, like it's okay. I can trust you, Lord. I know this is going to be hard, but you will be good to me. You will be faithful. Fruit will come from this.
Even if I don't know what that fruit is,
absolutely,
I know you well enough to know that fruit will come.
That's right. That's right. And if you need to use me in some process, that yes is good for me, but also gets to benefit somebody else and ultimately bringing him the glory. Okay, sign us all up for it. We may not run towards that refining, but with each refining season, we trust him better. Okay, you said back at the beginning, you said you're comm arts and
criminal justice.
Tell us real quick, what do you want to be when you grow up?
What do I want to be? My end goal is to join the FBI and work with human trafficking. And I think in a weird way, the Lord has even used part of my testimony to be able to be a lot more empathetic towards people who have gone through things like that. And a motivation, an ability to see and deal with a lot of crap, and continue moving and continue wanting to see the best in the world. So that's the goal. Everybody say a prayer for me.
I know. Listen, because it's coming quick.
Yes, ma'am.
It's coming quick. Okay, why Union? What have you loved about these 4 years here? As far as goodness gracious, you have experienced more than the average Joe. And here it is, all coming to an end. What can you look back on and go, man alive, this place has been what? Fill in the blank.
What I needed. Like I had mentioned at the beginning, like I had no intention to actually come to Union. But as I've been here for the past 4 years, I can say that it was God that like put that urgency on my heart to come to Union, because I can't imagine going through what I've gone through any other place than Union. The community, and I know community is one of those things that Union takes pride in and is said a lot, but I think they have earned the right to be able to say that, because the community and the people that I've met that have been so crucial in my faith walk, in my grief walk, in my joy walk, like all of those things, and that goes for students as well as professors. Like, I have had so many professors just love on me and listen to me and encourage me. And I think that this is a unique experience that, like, I have friends that go to state schools that don't have the same experiences that I've had. But I think the Lord has also just been so faithful in providing such an amazing group of people on campus to love me well. And there's a sense of community and just so much joy in so many different things that you can do on campus. And so, just very, very grateful to be here.
What a gift. The Lord knew. He knew that you would 100%. Need this gift in this season. And you're right. It's exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very proud of you. I don't ever want to minimize the difficulty of your journey. As I say, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
But knowing what all a student experiences throughout these 4 years, you have experienced a lot, and you have handled it, yes, clearly with the Lord, but to see you continue to be joyful and hopeful and to stand strong at 5'10", and like literally stand strong. It is just a testimony of the Lord's goodness in your life. And I'm just, listen, you've left your imprint on this campus, and what a gift you are to everybody that knows you. So thank you for being brave and honest in your story with us, and we're cheering you on, sister.
Thank you.
Go,
this has
Mo.
been such a joy.
Go, Mo. You. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation of Let's Talk About That with Mo Sparks. Y'all have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you next time. I appreciate you, Mo Sparks, so much. What a gift you are. Girl, you keep pressing on. We love you so much and how you love the Lord and serve others with such compassion and joy. All right, everybody, have a great day.